Who doesn't?
And we are live. There we go. There's always a buffer with these things, which always throws you off. What I always do with my guests, here's a little behind the scenes thing here, is we have a period of time where we got to sit here and smile at the camera like this.
Yeah.
So that you've got that editing point at the beginning of the video, and it's always very difficult. But anyway, welcome. Good morning. This is Friday, and it is Food Safety Chat Live, and every week at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, or midnight in Sydney, Australia, we go live and we bring on a guest to talk about a food safety topic. And throughout the week, you've done an amazing job of producing that safe food that we all love and enjoy every single day, but it's really not noticed. Nobody notices when you do a good job. But guess what? I notice, Peter notices, and we're really happy you do what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you're new, yes. And what you'll notice here as well, too, is this is not a lecture. This is not a presentation. This is meant to be a platform to exchange information. And the guests that I bring on this show are worldwide experts, and Peter definitely fits in that category. So listen and put those questions in the comments, and we'll make sure and get to them and work those into the conversation as we're going along here. So with that, I'm really happy because getting Peter on, this is really difficult. And even before we get here, Mr. Peter Holtmann, is that I want to thank you, because where Peter's at in Australia, guys, it is midnight. So we're keeping up Peter from midnight to 1 a.m. Saturday morning. So thank you, Peter, for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Yes, the dog is keeping my side of the bed warm as we speak. So, yeah, it's been some time since we've spoken. And I know we've had one previous attempt at this where technology let me down, so that was my fault. So it looks like all systems go tonight.
Yep, things are looking great. Nice picture feed, sound is great, everything is good. And that's kind of one of the things that when you're doing these live streams, it's live, right? And so you have to roll with the punches. And this has happened before where a camera will go out or sound doesn't, things like this. And Austin's here. Good morning, Austin. I think that happened to Austin and I on one of our conversations, right? And you just got to keep going. It's kind of like in what we do in quality and food safety is, you just can't throw up your hands and quit. You got to keep going.
Absolutely.
Ryan? Yeah, good morning, Ryan. Ryan's been on a guest here on the show recently, did a great job, as well as Elena. So we've got the regulars who are coming in here. So I had mentioned that you are in the Sydney, Australia area. And one of the things we always do here is I'm in Loveland, Colorado, where we're in the midst of summer. So it's plenty warm here. So we're around, let's see, today it's going to get up around to 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow.
Let's see, F to C. So we're looking at around 32 here for you. What's your temperature looking like here on a fine Saturday?
It's below freezing point here. So in Celsius, it's -3. So whatever that is. So I'm in the mountains outside Sydney. So we're at about just over 3,500 feet elevation here. So it gets it gets a little colder than Sydney. I was down there this evening, and it's balmy and tropical compared to up here at the moment.
Nice. Well, I imagine that's a nice thing as well too, because Sydney can get hot. It can get really hot down there.
Easily over the 100 Fahrenheit. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, too hot for me. I don't like that. I would prefer cold to hot. I only care for the hot. So with that, well, we've got a ton of stuff here to go over here today, guys. So with that, let's get our beverage. I don't know if you want coffee at this hour or not. It'll keep you up all night.
It'd be a whiskey for me.
There you go. Well, join Peter and I, guys, for a drink of your favorite beverage. Cheers.
I won't drink. I won't consume alcohol on TV. It's probably not sends the wrong message, right? We're not all alcoholics, Danny. We drink like fish, but we're not all alcoholics.
So one of the things that we do on the chat here, Peter, since the last time you're on, is we do a dad joke with everybody. And so, yeah, right here on the trusty sheet. Are you ready? Are you ready for the dad joke?
Oh, bring it on.
All right. What do you call a crocodile that works for the police?
Oh, my God. What?
That's an investigator.
No way. Okay. Take that away right away.
Are you liking my accent? Working on it.
Oh, my God. Well, at least you're working on it.
And in addition, you also get a bonus. I also put together an Australian alligator to demonstrate the joke.
Crikey.
Cutting off. Come back.
There he is.
Ah. There he is. Okay, we'll do it like that.
Yep, that was just a baby.
Oh, there we go. That's an example here on the chat is technical things always, all the time. Cut off all my stuff on the top. That's okay. We'll just keep going. So we're going to dive in here, guys. Like I hit. Oh, Lena likes my accent.
Yeah.
You can do it in short little snippets, but you can't do a whole lot of it. So Peter, so when you and I were preparing here for the chat recently, you put out an article. I'll put the link to the article.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
In the comments. Leadership by accident while we're failing our Q management. Fantastic article, my friend. Really good.
Thank you.
Hit the nail on the head. I think it's, guys, and it's something, and really within the last 4 months or so, Peter, this has really become a theme here on the chat. Is we're all talking about these things and we're seeing these failures. And here in the US, of course, the big Boar's Head recall with Listeria and their deli meat really caught people's attention in the public space. We see all the recalls and they necessarily don't, but this is something that kind of broke through. And pretty much everybody that I talk to in the US knows about the Boar's Head recall. And kind of this pattern that always repeats itself is, oh my gosh, we've had this bad issue. Let's put in more quality programs. Let's put in more documentation. Let's put in more systems. And guess what? The recalls stay the same. They don't go down. And it's just this vicious cycle that keeps going on. And it's not a system issue. It's a people issue. And when I read your article, and I was like, over here sitting at my desk, where I got my book over here. That's the reason I wrote my damn book, is that people do these things. Processes don't do these things. Machine do these things. If you don't have the right people in place, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You could have the prettiest plant in the world, but that plant's going to fail in short order if you don't teach your people. And if you do well in a technical space, your bosses see that and they go, oh, wow, Bryan's doing a good job as that microbiologist and he's doing all this good work. Let's promote him. And then all of a sudden you're sitting at a desk and you're like, okay, what do I do? And you're just thrown to the wolves, aren't you?
Absolutely. And this is, you know me, Bryan, I travel the world with my job. I'm in enterprise risk management in many different fields. And, I've spent more than 25 years going around the world looking at people's systems, looking at behaviors, looking at cultures, looking at how people respond to standards and compliance and systems and all that stuff. And you're right, it's definitely a people problem. It's not a developed world problem. It's not a developing world problem. It's, hey, you look like you know what you're talking about because you know how to read a standard and you know how to translate a standard into work practice. Therefore, you must be really good at making people follow standards. And you know what? People more often than not don't want to follow a standard because they don't understand it. There's no why factor in there, as I like to refer to Simon Sinek, and he start with why philosophy. You know, that why am I following a standard in the first place? In fact, I've just been asked to run a training program on FSSC for managers at a company because they don't know why people are following the standard and not doing what they're told to do. So this whole fundamental understanding about, well, why are we doing this stuff in the first place kills it. And so they just say, well, you're the tech expert. You must know what this is. So you make people do it. But you know what? Our wonderful tech people have never gone through a management school. Very few have got an MBA. Very, very few have been mentored into management processes, influencing skills, change management skills. And then all of a sudden they have to put in a food safety culture program. Like, what the hell? You know, like what do I even know about this? And food safety culture is not a system. It never was. Never should be considered or even presented like that. And it's as sure as hell is not a bloody food safety culture survey that you do once a year and say, we've got food safety culture because we do a survey and look at all the pretty bar charts. Yeah, you know, yay, we've done a survey. Food safety culture is about behavior. And in order to influence behavior and change behavior, you have to know how to do that. And that's one of the fundamental failings of why these things don't go forward.
You said two key words that I want to make sure that everybody picked up on in what you just said there, Peter. Make them. You can't make anybody do this stuff. And we think in quality, right? Oh, if something's written down, that means people have to do it. In 2.2.7 document control, thou shalt do this, that, and that. All I have to do is write down a procedure and show this to other people, and they will read it and understand what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
No, right? They're going to look at it and say, "Screw this! I don't need this. This is for the QA guy." And you get into this death spiral, and then the quality person thinks, "Okay, now it's my job to force this on everybody and make them do this." And we all know as human beings, if somebody pushes you, you're pushing back.
Yeah, every time. And because most people immediately think that, hey, it's more work for me and less pay for more work and more responsibility, because some people just don't want responsibility. They just want to turn up, leave their brain in the glove box in their car, go and do a decent 8-hour shift of mindless, monotonous garbage, and then get in their car, drive home, have a beer, and kick the dog around the house and think it's been a great day at work type thing. And they're some of the hardest people to influence about anything. So why would you put it upon a technical person with no leadership experience to then go in and say to those people, no, I really want you to do it because it's really important? They're like, get out of here, man. I've got other things to do.
Yeah, I've been doing this job for 20 years, and now you're going to come in and tell me what's important. Yeah. You don't know anything, right? That's what you get back.
That's exactly right. And so things fall over all the time. Or people are frightened of supervisors and managers and leaders and like, oh, I can't stop that production line because if I do, I'm going to get fired for it, or my pay's going to get docked, or someone's going to yell at me. So I'll just let that food safety issue go straight past me, just whiz past, and it'll be someone else's problem down the line, right? Like, it's not mine.
Yeah, we never had a problem before. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And so, and that's where messaging in the company is so important. If the messaging comes down and the supervisor understands, it may not be said, but if the supervisor understands, okay, my job in this company is to get out 10,000 cases of product a day, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. Come rain, hail or shine. I was at a food processing, a meat processing plant fairly recently, and the whole emphasis is on how many carcasses they can break in a day, not how safe it was, how clean it was, how assured they are of it. It's just how many of these things can we get out the door?
Yeah. I remember, in my past, I was working at a cheese company and we were making goat cheese, and then we were having a yeast problem. So if you're making goat cheese, it's a very delicate, very fragile product. It's almost like yogurt. And they have these large, almost like, they're like big sacks called berges that you press the whey out of for the goat cheese. So you produce the curd and then you fill up these long sacks, and they're in like a big press, Peter. And it very slowly presses and the whey drips out onto the floor. Really hard to clean those bags correctly. And we were having yeast issues. And the plant was falling behind. I was putting stuff on hold. It wasn't meeting spec. People in operations were getting upset, the CEO. And so we were having a big meeting, and they were bringing me in to explain what was going on, right? As if it was my problem, right? I wasn't the one who wasn't doing things correctly. And finally, I said to the CEO, I don't care how fast we manufacture, we're making garbage. All we're doing is producing stuff for a landfill. And he went, and then he got it. He got it. And then we were able to fix that problem because they realized that all they were doing was just creating more waste. And they weren't filling orders. They were upsetting the customers. They had to do a reset. And sometimes you have to push that button and you have to do a reset.
Absolutely. And here we are. We've got these poor quality managers, QA managers that have now been thrust to the front and been asked to implement a food safety culture or change a food safety culture, even worse. Or, hey, we've just been bought out by someone and we're now part of a much bigger entity that has an even worse culture. But guess what? Tap, you're it. You're the guy that's the poor bunny that's going to sit there and change the world for us, and what a daunting bloody task that is for some people, right? Which is, so what do I do? Well, the only thing I do know is systems and process and technical specs. So sure, that stuff's going to work, right? Because we make people do that. So therefore we can make them do a food safety culture, which is all about behavior. So how do you make people change their behavior without any leadership skills, any behavioral skill sets. Most people call understanding behavioral skills and emotional quotients and all that stuff as soft skills. They're the hardest skills to actually master and understand,
exactly.
let alone apply it in your workplace and then be influential and then engage people in the direction you want them to go, all the people all the time. That's no mean feat. Most executives, and I used to be a global CEO, and know how hard it is to get a company from here to here to follow you. Imagine being that QA person sitting down there trying to drag a company into a new era of food safety with a culture emphasis.
Yeah, it can't be done, and that's why I'm always so happy to have you on here, because this is a really unique opportunity, guys. Because as Peter alluded to, with Holtmann Professional Services, his business. So you and I think this is why you and I are such good friends, is that we both understand these two levels. It's okay, we understand all the system stuff, but that's great. How do you actually implement it? How do you execute these things? And there's only one place you do that, and that's in a plant. And every plant is unique. Every company is unique. They all change all the time. And you would reference that. All you need to do is work for a company that all of a sudden was acquired, or you have an acquisition and everything is blown up. So in your travels, and you travel extensively going out, so Peter's very hands-on. He's out there in the field, in there doing stuff. He's not sitting in his desk. And so for your travels and everything that you're seeing out there in the world, Peter, what else are you seeing out there from a day-to-day that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I think some of the harder parts down here are people understanding things like how important protection, food risk and food protection is. Things like product recall, for instance. People just think it's another system, and we'll demonstrate product recall every 12 months by doing a desk-bound traceability exercise. Well, that's not the end of it, I run full simulations all the time where you bring in the marketing people, you bring in the finance people, you bring in the legals, the insurers. You even, on some of the good jobs, you call up their first level of customer, or even sometimes if you're at that level, you might start talking to some specific consumer groups, and then you see how good your recall system is. It's not just, we can do traceability. It's but how do you talk to people about it? Most importantly, how do people make decisions and solve problems as a team using the processes that you've actually mapped out for them? And that's a huge problem I see for people operating systems. Yeah,
it's what I've done as well too. And the standard says trace back, 1 forward, 1 back, blah blah blah. That's 3% of what you need to be doing during a crisis scenario. How are you talking? How do you bring your team together? How do you evaluate the problem? How do you talk to the media when that local news station shows up at your front door and they want to talk to somebody? Who is it? Who's going to go out there and talk with the media and explain? How do you put together your systems to explain to the consumers what are going on, right? So you need to look at this from that standpoint and say, okay, that mother with a 5-year-old child who has consumed your product that may have listeria, who is panicking, how do you communicate to that person to let her know if her child is going to be okay or not? That's not traceability. She doesn't care that you had 100% traceability on your inbound ingredients. You've got a problem and she doesn't care. You need to be able to, and to your point, this is where this weaves into those two elements, systems and people skills. Okay, you have to be able to look at this empathetically.
Every single time. I was running a simulation for a global frozen food company, and this was from their Australian or their Asia Pacific headquarters based out of Australia. And the CEO was meant to be the spokesperson for the company. And by the end of the simulation, the whole of the recall team basically said, you are not it going forward. You can't talk to people because you're putting out the wrong vibe, the wrong messages, the wrong approach. You don't stay on script. You come up with your own words. You do what you like. At the end of the day, you don't follow any reasonable path to make people feel comfortable or assured of the outcome. You're not it anymore, and that's the beauty of running these things: is you find out who has the skills and who doesn't.
Yep. Once people get under pressure, you see how they really are.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, because I've done these simulations too, what you also learn is the people that you exclude are going to make up their own story. So I've talked about this on the chat before. If you don't involve the sales team, because the retailers are calling the sales guys and saying, hey, listen, I see you guys having a recall. What the hell is going on? Yeah. If the sales guy is not in the loop, sales guys are salespeople. They're going to make something up. They aren't going to say, I don't know. They're going to make something up. And I've had that bite me before.
They always fill a void. In the absence of the truth, don't stop a good story from getting out there, right? So, because good stories sell newsprint and sell airtime. So let's fill it with something. One thing I always tell my clients is make sure there's a single source of truth that everyone points everyone back to, and that source, person, website, whatever it might be, is the place to go. And I can tell you, it sure as hell isn't social media. That's the worst place to be putting it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other quick point on that I want to bring up for people as well too, is that what you learn to these scenarios is what you know is contextual. So what do I mean by that? At any given point in time, you have some information. You're never going to have the whole story. So early on in the crisis situation, you have very crappy information. You have limited details. The plants are telling you some stuff. Regulatory is breathing down your neck. And you may have to make a decision at that point in time of, do we recall or not? And you have to take that into account, because if you then go back after the fact and look at your decision at that point in time, you're like, geez, why did we do that? Well, of course we did that. That's all we knew at that point in time. We've got more information now. Now that past decision looks bad, but it was the right decision at the time. You have to push forward.
Yeah, and again, a lot of the responsibility falls on that poor QA manager, who they usually end up making the recall coordinator. Again, they don't have the skill set, or sometimes they don't even have the behavioral attributes to be
I was in that position.
Recalls. Yeah.
I was in charge of quality for a company, and I was managing a recall as the recall coordinator. And one of the key lessons I learned from that, Peter, I'm sure you've seen this too, is everybody was just pounding me for information. So I'm trying to investigate to figure out what happened. And FDA is calling me, and the CEO is calling me, and the marketing people are calling, and the sales people want to know what's going on. I couldn't get anything done because everybody wanted updates all the time.
Yeah.
So no, don't do that. That's it. That's a key point from that.
Yeah. And poor old QA manager gets drummed again.
Yep. And so this really, I think, interleaves in very nicely with your article. And with that, you talk about this poor quality manager. She gets put in this position, and there was 4 different attributes that you had listed out that were critical that you found. And let's kind of talk about those 4. First off, what were the 4?
Some of the attributes that we were talking about, definitely having attention to detail in there and being influential is key. It's also about being able to make decisions, being able to solve problems, and being able to communicate are some of the really key functions, key attributes for anyone that's performing those roles. I mean, if you can't communicate where you're heading with this and why we're doing it and how we're going to get there, you might as well just be talking to yourself in a room with no doors and windows, because the message ain't getting out there at the end of the day. And if you can't influence people with good communication skills, there's no way they're coming along for the ride with you.
Yeah, and you have to be able to negotiate as well. And I'd be curious to see in the comments how many technical people who are in our conversation have gone through a class or learned about negotiating skills.
Yeah, it's a fundamental for this stuff, because you're not always going to get your message across, right? It's not always going to be, I get it first time, let's go and do this in 100% variance. As we said before, there's people that just don't want to do it. So how do you reframe your position so that there's common ground that you start from, which is part of the negotiation process, that you reframe this position and then go forward from there, which is, okay, you want to be here, I want to be here, but we're looking for something back here that we can actually build upon. Who teaches that? Like, the only thing you're taught when you're in QA is how to report numbers and non-conformances, right? So, and is it safe? Is it not? Yes, no. No one's telling you about how do we make it better and how do we engage people to make it better, because hell, no one's got time to do anything anymore. They're so flat out. No one's got time to improve a process.
Right, exactly. And there's that false view in manufacturing that if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm thinking that I'm not working. Wrong, you are, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be out working on a machine or that's a key role for the quality manager in the plant is they need to be thinking about these different things and talking with people and figuring out and negotiating and influencing within the company. And there's this false view in quality that it's us against everyone else. And if you're in that position, you're cooked. You're not going to be successful in your role.
Absolutely. And when I coach people in these roles, I tell them that they should be building towards 20% of their time is on thinking about the business and working on the business, not working in the business. So you've got to be the only way you're going to cut. And if you think about that, that's like 1 day a week out of a working week. So out of a 5-day week, you've got to spend 1 day of that working on the business to improve it. Otherwise, it gets away from you, and you're never ahead or leading the conversation. You're always coming from a reactive position, which is, well, no one told me. I didn't know that. I wasn't sure I could get there, or, I didn't see that coming. Well, that's because you're not spending that time on your processes.
Yep. And so part of this then is getting out there. And you referenced earlier, I want to make sure that everybody caught this. And so Tim brought this up as well, the why, right? So there's a book by Simon Sinek, the why. So you have to understand that. And this is where negotiating comes in as well, is that you have to understand the person that you're talking with and understand their perspective. What's your BATNA? What's your best alternative to a negotiated agreement? What's the common ground, to your point, Peter, which was really good, is how can I meet this person in the middle? How can I make them understand that what I'm asking them to do benefits them as well?
Absolutely. The why is probably the most important statement you can work on before you start messaging anything out there, which is, why am I even interested in it? And that's, I like to try and tie that into your personal vision. So the business might have a vision of where it's going and a mission statement, but what's your personal vision for your contribution to getting the business towards that goal, and who's buying into that? Because that's all part of the influence and negotiation skill. If people understand your intentions and your interests and even your passion in it, they're more likely to follow it, and particularly when you repeat it over and over, because we know it takes 19 times for a habit to form. So people have got to stick at it for that 20th miracle time. For when people say, oh, stop saying it, I've got it now, I've got it, I'm on board, but it takes that many times before people really get that personal vision of yours to come on board.
Yeah, I think Cortland makes a good point here, Peter, in that, okay, I think this is a really good example, is why doesn't food adopt management review? Guess what? It's in the standards, right? Management review, you shall have a management review, or you doing it, right? And it just becomes a mechanical exercise. And something I rail against here all the time is, okay, great, you have a management review report. You've got the consumer complaints, you've got some key performance metrics for the plant, whatever, going over the data for the last month or the last quarter. Who cares, right? That's past information that everybody already knows.
Yeah.
Your report should focus on, here's the information that we have. Here's how I extrapolate that to take our next course of action over the next month to improve the processes. That's what people need to know.
Absolutely. And I was practicing that tonight. I'm a chair of a number of boards, and I came from a board meeting tonight, and we had our overseas entity join us tonight, and they were really beautiful presentation about what they've just done and how things are going. And I like to ask them, this is great stuff, but what does the next 3 months look like? What's the focus? What are you working on? And how do we support you to get to that goal? It's not, well, why didn't you tell us those figures were going to be down last month? Because, there's no point constantly looking in the review mirror, because you're going to run into something straight in front of you. So management review is critical, provided you use it in the right way, which is, are we supporting it correctly? Do we have the right resources? And if you look in standards like either ISO 9000, ISO 14000, ISO 28000, these standards now, that in management review, they talk about things in the resources stuff about, do we have the right competency in place? And that's key now, because also a lot of standards talk about risk-based thinking. When was the last time anyone attended a course on risk-based thinking, or what the hell it even means? I mean, I remember when we were writing this, and I used to work at ISO in Geneva writing standards, and this stuff was coming in. They were talking about risk-based thinking. And I said, who understands what this means? Like, what? Okay, that standard's going to come out in 6 months. No one's told the industry it's coming. There's no training courses for it, yet now we're expecting people to do it. Now what? So we're going to be behind the eight ball. So management review is essential, particularly when we say, do we have the right resources? Do we have the right competency? And do we have the right skill sets to get people over that next hump that we're heading for? Back to the QA managers again, which is, here we are, we're trying to get them to lead and influence food safety culture, whatever the hell that is, and with no resource and no training and no competence. So what do? It's not their fault food safety culture isn't sticking, because I go to a lot of places, I don't see food safety culture glowing. I've been to and of all places, I saw it working at its best in Vietnam. I walked into the place, you could feel it. It's not something that you look on a board or a chart. You feel it the minute you walk in the door. You could see how people are approaching their work. Everyone wants to talk to you about how proud they are in their particular process. It doesn't matter if they were packing boxes or they were taking supplier calls or whatever. You could feel it. You walk in the door. That's culture for you right there.
Yeah, well, and this gets back to our theme, I think, with our conversation too. They understand why they're doing what they're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, what are you doing here in this line? Oh, I'm putting stuff in a box so it goes to the warehouse. Versus, I'm putting product in a box to feed families.
Yeah, and I think when you're outcomes focused, that whole idea of it's food and it needs to be safe gets lost. It's just something whirring past you, at 3 feet a second type stuff, and you're just meant to make sure that the lids were sealing down on the carton as it went past, without thinking what's actually in that box, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things I would always use to emphasize with my quality managers when I would train them is a couple of points. There's two main things, and this gets back to our influencing points here, Peter, is there's two things that you're looking after as the quality manager. You're managing food safety, and that's a yes or no, right? There's no gray area. Either it's safe or it's not. The other important part of your business, and I think a lot of times quality managers conflate these two things, is food quality. Food quality are the metrics and the information you do to run the business. And you need to be able to communicate that information up and use that to influence within the organization to move things in the right direction. And that's what the operational team, that's what the plant manager needs to run the business. And that's where the leadership element comes in. Hey guys, I'm seeing some issues here. We're seeing some hits in the sanitation process. It's moving in the wrong direction. We need to bring that back down. What do we need to do that? And you notice I'm saying we, right? It's not the quality manager going to the operations guy and saying, hey, you have bad results on this, fix this. No, you are part of the team. And the other key piece is, I would tell them your job description and what you do in your role is the baseline. That's what I expect of you on every single day. But guess what? Your job is to move the needle. Your job is to improve the plant. And what I'm going to grade you on for promotions or anything else is what you have done to make your plant better. And you better be able to explain that to me.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? You're touching on something that is one of my bugbears. When I go into factories and I'm looking at their critical control points and I look at the operators working at that point and I say, why are they there? Like, how come they've been positioned at a CCP station and said, well, they've been here the longest, therefore they know it. Well, I don't want someone that's been there the longest who might know all the shortcuts. I want someone who's been chosen for behavioral attributes because they know the importance of a critical control point, the importance of it, and they will have more attention to that CCP point, and they've been recruited and then further trained around the importance of CCPs. I mean, I went to a factory not that long ago, and I went up to the people operating a point that was a CCP, and I said, what do you know about it? And they said, I'm just told to press this red button and stop the line if the metal detector goes off. And I said, yeah, but do you know why you do that? And I said, because I was just told to. Mm-hmm. So there was no understanding that why statement again. There was no understanding about why this CCP point, this metal detector, was so important in the process. It's just do this, press this button. And that's crazy. Yeah. Like, how are we ever going to succeed in a food industry and get away from the innumerable number of recalls we have every year? How are we ever going to get away from it if we can't even get the people at that level understanding why that is an important step?
Yep. Nothing works unless the supervisor understands why he's doing what he's doing and he teaches his team those same attributes. So for me, one of the huge warning signs in a plant, if I go into a plant, is if I'm out on the floor touring around, you have the operators doing their stuff, and then you have quality standing there watching them and doing checks and saying, "Oh, I'm here to monitor the everything." I'm like, why? That's stupid. The operators are here to do that. You've taken their responsibility from them. What do you expect?
Yeah, there's no empowerment at all. They're just you might as well not even have a person there. You might as well just stick a robot on the line that can do exactly the same thing now. You know,
right?
And
so that mindset in a plant. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. Yeah, you're right.
I was going to say that mindset of that command and control tells me a lot about how that quality manager views his job or her job.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, they've been sort of inculcated into that process by someone else who said, this is how you do this quality job. You come in, here's your paperwork you fill out, here's your internal audit checklist, here's the 25,000 external audits that you're going to get every 6 weeks coming through, and you're just going to chaperone auditors. Don't get me started on auditors. But anyway, being an auditor for so many years.
Very well,
yeah. But you know what fighting chance does a QA manager have when all they're there for is a well-paid usher and a keeper of records and documents? And yet we still want them to do quality culture. Like, what the hell? So
right. Well, you had a very good statistic in your article, and again, I'll put the link to this at the end. Is 40% of a manager's time is spent managing people issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the realizations. The further up the tree you get, the less you're dealing with things and stuff and process, and the more you spend your time managing people and behaviors and opinions and attitudes, and until you get right up to the CEO level, and you're purely about influencing people's thought patterns so that they take on your idea and move it through the business. So it's all about working with people, not working people, but working with people. And it's got to start right at much lower levels and move up. But again, how do they ever know about it if they've never been taught this stuff, if they've never been introduced to these types of conversations?
Right. And a lot of times, these people get promoted into these roles. They aren't taught the skills that they need. So they think, okay, I'll just push everybody really hard to do what they're supposed to do. And I'll keep an eagle eye on everything. We all know this as people. Who here likes to be micromanaged? Hello?
No, sorry.
Anybody? Holy crap. Nobody likes that. And that's the surest path to failure, is not trusting and trying to macromanage your team because you feel like you've got to control everything.
Yeah, and look, I go to sites where QA managers can't let go of the processes. It's like they're a QA manager and they've got a team of people around them, but they don't use them because they want to make sure that the process is done right. And again, leadership tells you to share workload, share concepts, share resources, but also allow people to make mistakes because you learn from mistakes. You don't learn from doing things good all the time. You always look for improvement. But I see those types of people all the time, and because they've been told that that's what a QA manager does.
Well, and part of this too, right, is you need to be able to practice these skills. Nobody learns a new skill by not practicing. And if you're dealing with a QA manager who, she's used to dealing with all this technical stuff, and now we're teaching this person, okay, that's all great that you do all this stuff. Plus, now we want you to learn these new skills around negotiating, influencing, all the things we're talking about. You have to teach them and they have to train. And you have to say, okay, well, now that what I've shown you relative to this skill, let's go out and practice this. Let's have some real world applications, and then we'll course correct on those things, right?
Absolutely. And they've got to be able to come back in and debrief with someone as well. Like it's this, you don't just learn these things in a vacuum. You don't just get told once or shown once or read this book once and then go apply it. This coaching and mentoring is an ongoing process because what you're trying to do is build people's confidence up to do it again and to try a different level of skill, more complexity, more challenge, solve bigger problems. The only way they do that is becoming more confident by solving things together, by getting that feedback, saying, yeah, you've actually solved that. You're now ready for the next step. You don't just say, well, there it is. There's another ISO standard in quality culture. Now go put that in place, and good luck, and there's no money for it. but you're just going to have to do it anyway, and you have to make people want to do it. But don't create any more paperwork, for the love of God, because we don't want to get caught out when we're not filling it out. So,
well, yeah, and part of this too, right? It's a you have to build, just like any skill in life. You have to build a step at a time, and you have to build these base skills. And then this leads into things that are going to make or break you in a management role, and that's projects. So it could be as simple then as, let's say that you had a failure and you needed a corrective action. Good example of this from earlier this week. I was traveling and I was out in Tennessee, and I stayed at a hotel. I won't name the brand. Horrible hotel. Probably one of the worst managed hotels I've stayed at in a really, really long time. I got an email earlier this week from the sales representative for that hotel and said, "Hey, Bryan, I saw you stayed at our hotel, and I can offer you a corporate rate if you're interested." I responded back to her and I said, "No, I'm not interested, and here's why." And I listed out in broad categories. To give you an example, I was traveling with my wife, Peter, and she was so grossed out by the room, she made me go to the store and buy sanitizing wipes and floor cleaners.
Wow.
And she cleaned the room herself because we were sticking to the floor. There was so many chemicals from the cleaning.
Oh, wow.
All these little things. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to complain. Sent her that note on Monday. As of yesterday, no response. So I'm like, that's totally unacceptable. You at least need to acknowledge that you received my complaint.
Yeah.
So good old Grok. You got to love Grok. So I put a message into Grok and said, "Who are the senior leaderships at this hotel chain who are responsible for customer satisfaction?" I got the executive vice president. I got the person in charge of franchise operations, because this was a franchise location, et cetera, et cetera. And I sent that email to the two top executives in the US and worldwide with her on copy yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Is she going to get my attention? Yeah, right. You cannot ignore these things. That's a people thing. And guess what? I've got some influence in this area. So now you're going to learn a valuable lesson.
Well, and you point out something that's really important. In days of yore and before social media and all that, people felt like they had less of a voice, and maybe they would write a letter, and maybe physical letter, and maybe here these days everyone feels entitled to a particular type of service because they're being brought up in a far more affluent culture these days, and everyone's got multiple avenues for expressing any sort of opinion at the end of the day. And it doesn't take long for that type of message that you're talking about. We're doing it right now. We're doing it without naming the brand. We're doing it right now, and it's going out to scores of people, and it'll sit out there, and because it's a great story. People have got to understand that this response and this responsibility to good outcomes, food safety, quality, environment, whatever, is just as important across the whole business. And it can't be left to a singular individual who sits in an office with, binders full of standards and full of paperwork. It's not their singular responsibility to make a company great. It never should be. Right.
And I don't want anything from this company. I just want them to recognize this and correct it, because it's a major failure. Now translate that to food safety. I'm a consumer who has had a bad experience and my child became sick or something like that, and I send you an email and you don't respond, or you don't show empathy, or you don't say, "Oh my gosh, that is really, really bad. We're here to help you and make sure this doesn't happen." And I don't get a response. People have the tools now to escalate that very, very quickly. So take that same scenario and say, okay, I go out and I search and I find in Grok the head of the regional district for FDA for compliance. And that person gets the email from me. Now, all of a sudden, somebody's at your door tomorrow because you didn't follow up and illustrate and manage leadership skills and influence.
Absolutely. It's and social media is great for judge, jury, and execution by social media these days. And you know what? It's over as fast as it started, but the implications last far longer for that company and other companies. It's that horrible halo effect that it's probably not just going to be that company, but it's that brand and it's that style and that industry that's going to get all tarred with the same brush. And I see that a lot in the food industry.
Yep. And so that's why it's so critically important for these new managers to develop these skill sets on how to create a project and then how to manage and close out that project successfully. And you can't do that on your own. If you're in a production facility, you need to bring in a team to do that and lead that team. I'm sure you hate this as much as I do, Peter. There's no response I hate worse as a quality manager. Let's say I put in a complaint within my company to a supplier, and I get a response back 2 or 3 days later that says, yeah, we retrained our operator.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really helpful. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah.
Okay, why did the training fail in the first place? So it's going to work now?
Yeah. Well, they probably beat him with a stick while they were training him, so,
Yeah, that's that old saying, right? Beatings will continue until morale improves.
Absolutely.
So with this too, I mean, so there's a theme through our conversation here today. I think it's really obvious, and the reason we're talking about this so much on the chat. Food safety culture, Peter, not sticking, is it?
It isn't sticking, no, and it's because of the lack of competencies and able to influence behaviour, make change, negotiate a new path, and most importantly, make it sustainable, which is not sustainability through audits, surveys, and anything else you can think of. This is about changing people's behaviours that work in that business from the top down, this is important because we make food. We don't make money. Money is a byproduct of really good food product going out the door that people like to eat and that would come back. So we make food. We make safe food. We make quality food. We make great food, and everything else is a happy byproduct of that. And that's the behaviour that we're looking for from food manufacturers, or like I tell this story to more than food. I tell it across quality. I was doing it in aerospace, for aerospace component manufacturers not that long ago. I've done it with government departments. The message is the same no matter where you go. And there's always this level of quality people, no matter what they are, that are sort of mushrooms sitting in the back there being kept in the dark and fed on bullshit and told them that you're going to sprout into something really beautiful one day, and it just never happens.
Right. It's that old saying which drives me nuts is, oh yeah, we've got these complaints and everything else. Oh, we had a quality problem. No, we didn't. We had a production problem.
Yeah.
Right? What are we going to do about it? Right. They love to give you their problems. Don't accept their problems. Keep the ownership and responsibility where it needs to be. And really, Peter, I think this is something that we've been working on. It's really kind of cool because I'm seeing parallel paths on this. You're doing this, I'm doing this, I'm talking with other people that are doing this. Is quality systems are important, and you need to have these things that we have in place now with audits and GFSI and whatever else. But really, it's risk. It's risk assessment within your company. Standards are nice because they put you in a food sector category and all these type of things. But every company is unique. Every industry is unique. You need to look at these. And to your point, these are all overarching in that it doesn't matter if you're a government or aerospace or food, everything. You need to understand the risk associated with what it is that you're doing and the people who are doing these things.
Absolutely. And again, I don't want people to fall into the trap that because we've got an ISO standard 33,000 out there on risk management, that it's a standard and a system. It is behaviors. It should be looked on as, how are we changing behavior in the business to think about risk? And how much risk is this business prepared to take when it takes something from here and places it here into a consumer's hand to make sure that that is exactly safe for a consumer to use at the end of the day? And it's a behavior. Risk is behavior.
Mm-hmm. And that overlays very nicely with what we're talking about. So to kind of bring people full circle on this is, what we do in quality is two main buckets: food safety and quality assurance, right? So is it safe and is it what people expect? Overlaying that is the risk. And the risk, obviously, on the food safety side of things is extreme. We need to make sure that that never happens. The other side of that bucket relative to risk is a business decision.
Yeah.
You need to be able to talk the language of business and to be able to explain to your boss and senior management the risk associated with particular activities. Okay, we're going to launch a new and improved version of our product. Are we prepared as a company to get the complaints? Because people don't like change. Until people become accustomed to the new product, complaints are going to go up, and we're going to get a lot of feedback on this new product. Expect that, right? That's influencing. That's preparing the groundwork. Because if you're just reacting as a quality manager, oh, complaints spiked up with our new and improved product. and then all of a sudden you get beat because complaints are now not meeting the KPI metric, shame on you. That's your fault for not explaining and influencing properly.
And it can be something as minor as the color changes slightly on the packaging, or they use a different ingredient in the product, and its flavor profiles change, but it still performs the same. I remember back in the days when R&D could be left out of any quality and food safety standard. They didn't have to be a component of the whole quality and food safety cycle because it was R&D. They weren't in the production stream. They were something adjunct to it. But, thank God those days are going away when they're now considered an essential component.
Oh, absolutely. They have an incredible influence on things that happen in the plant. And to extrapolate this, and this overlays really nicely with our conversation here today, is does the operator understand those parameters? And the example I use for this is a past product I used to have. In one of my companies, a fantastic product, a flavored cream cheese, and there was like vegetable and salmon, and you would put it on your bagels. Top-notch product. Everything for that product from a quality standpoint depended on that operator on the line at that filling machine. And getting the right consistency, Peter, of that product was paramount. Because imagine you're a consumer and you've got this dip and you've got your cracker and right. If that product is too hard, if it's over whipped, that cracker is going to break, right? If it's too soupy, right? You put your cracker in there and you're like, ew, right? Texture, critical, absolutely critical on that. Does that have anything to do with food safety? No. That is all food quality. And we work tirelessly with our operators to make them understand what that right consistency coming off that line was, because that product was still warm. It was around 75 degrees, and then it went to the cooler, and then it would solidify to the right texture in the cooler. So the operators wouldn't even see that on the line. But we worked really closely with them to say, okay, here's the test you do with the spoon. Here's the right consistency. Okay, now you do it. Can you see how this does this? And it would do like a little curlicue, like on the top of an ice cream cone. That is exactly what we want. And guess what, guys? If it doesn't meet that standard, if it's too hard and it just goes, right? Or if it's too soft and it just goes and flattens out, we want to know in the lab. Bring the samples to the lab and we can evaluate and decide if it goes on hold. Simple feedback process. Right on. I don't want to deal with it when I've got 50,000 cases in the warehouse that are too hard or too soft. Too late. That's garbage. I can't fix it. I can fix it on the line. Ooh, this is kind of soupy. Do this with the dials. Change some stuff.
Yeah.
How are you communicating that? Now, to your point, bringing this full circle, Peter, that operator understands the why. Why are you doing this texture test? Everything I just said, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If they feel like they're an engaged part of the process, they'll want to do it a better way, because it's like when you go to some of these high performance car brands, for instance, you get one person building the engine and their signature goes on the boilerplate on the engine. I remember John Deere harvesters out of Milwaukee. They used to have something called a birth certificate, which means everyone that had a hand in building that harvester signed the birth certificate saying, I'm signing off that I've done my job well. And that would go to the farmer with the harvester. So, there are industries that get this idea of the importance of an operator contributing to the quality and, in this case, also the safety outcomes of a product.
Yeah, and then there's great pride in that. I built this.
Absolutely.
This. It's huge. And so Cortland brings up a good point here, is FDA is leading the way on this, right? So if they're doing this, we need to be doing this too. And we need to be ahead of the curve on this so that we can manage this in the plants. So we're getting low on time here, Peter. And so I want to give you some time because we've covered an absolute ton of material here. Bringing this up to the 30,000 foot level, what would you like to leave people with here today?
Well, I'd like to leave people with the thought that there is hope around this, that as late as tonight, I was talking with a major university about coming up with a program for quality managers, about a postgraduate program. In this case, it was through a school of postgraduate studies that we're trying to put together so that people can come and learn in an intensive way some of these essential skills. So it's not all hope is lost, abandoned ship, all that sort of stuff. We've just got to change the focus that if you're giving people these skills that have to influence others to do a job a certain way, that have to deliver the why message, why am I even here, why am I doing this, that they've got to have the commensurate skills to do it. Yeah. You don't just walk away and say, well, you're a technical person. You've come out of university. You've got a degree in microbiology. Therefore, you must know how to lead people. What a load of garbage, So there's So, there's hope at the end of the day. So we're working towards it. I'm hoping that, before this year ends us, that we'll be able to promote something like that, it'll be a globally accessible program for QA personnel. We'll start with QA person, but that they can go through it and at least get some of the essential skills and practice it.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. We'll check back in Q4 and see how that's going. I want to definitely keep a close track on this. And this is why I love talking with Peter. Peter he's top tier role. He's seeing everything globally associated with this, right? A lot of times in the US, we get too locked into what we're trying to do here. This suppliers, it's a global, everybody is producing food globally now, and we need to think in those terms. And I just wanted to thank you for all that you're doing in that space.
Oh, thank you, mate. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it's a global market. We don't just buy stuff out of our own corner store and turn it into another product. We're buying stuff. We're talking about one of my customers. They grow blueberries in Marrakesh. They grow bananas, in northern Queensland here in Australia. They're growing other product in China. But it's all their own brand. But they all bring it down to a central point. There's no such thing as, grow it in your own backyard these days. It's wherever the market needs must.
Definitely. And so let me put the link in here for your article. Does this have in here contact information, Peter, on how to get a hold of you if people want more information?
Yeah, it should be down there. Otherwise, it's off to holtmann.com.au. That's holtmann.com.au. You'll also find I've just launched a textbook on product recall. So after many months of writing, I've taken 25 years worth of product recall experience and turned it into a book there which runs you through. It doesn't matter if you're in food, you're in cars, you're in washing machines, or you're making washing powder. It doesn't matter. It's got the tips for everyone on how to navigate their way through a product recall process and come out great the other side.
Brilliant. Yeah. When that's out, I want a copy of that too. Definitely for sure. And with that, to kind of celebrate what we were talking about here today as well, is I've got an entire section on my book on HR and the importance of hiring the right people within there. I've got a whole section on quality systems. Another section in the book, Peter, I have on philosophy and how to approach things correctly. I'll leave the third section for people to figure out. But what I want to do here today is I'm going to give away 5 copies of my book to the first 5 people that contact him. And my email, is right here, is reach out to me and say, I want a copy of your book. And I will send you free of charge a copy of my book.
Wow, that's really nice of you. Well done to you. Yeah, and I'd recommend it. It's Bryan, you're full of insight. People notice we've got a bit of a bromance going online here today. Is that we're having a broman. So, but we spent a lot of time collaborating globally around the world. When I used to work in the States, we'd catch up, and you're right, Bryan. We've got a lot of similar ideas, and it's great that we can at least have our part in trying to influence others to start to think and experiment in the ideas that we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, one final thought on that from me as well is get out of your bubble, right? There are other people who are in the same boat as you, who are going through the same struggles as you. And that's why I love this chat so much and why I do it all this time, is that this information needs to be shared. You can't just manage this in your own company and think that you're going to be successful. There's other people out there like Peter who've been there, done that, who can help you with that process and accelerate that learning so you don't have to go through all the pain and the mistakes and the grief that we went through to learn that information. So be smart and learn from other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been a great chat, Bryan. It's always good to catch up with you.
So thanks again, Peter. So it's almost 1 a.m. for you out there. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us. And everybody also, you too, right? This is a big time and commitment for everybody. And we recognize that an hour out of your week to listen to this chat is huge. So we want to bring as much value and benefit to you as we can. So hopefully we're delivering that for you here in the chat. And of course, next week we'll be back again for another food safety chat where we'll bring another kick-ass expert like Peter onto the show who's going to share their knowledge and expertise with you. And I'm here to hopefully help bring that information to you. But in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Have a little bit of fun out there. Enjoy that nice weather. And we'll see you back here next week. So thanks, everybody. And thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. See you all.